OK, Simply Red's Mick Hucknell will be chatting to him shortly about the band's brand new album, which is out tomorrow. But let's remind ourselves one of the band's biggest hits first, from the 1991 album of the same name. I had it, I played it to death. This is Stars. Stars there, one of Simply Red's greatest hits. Since forming in the mid-1980s in Manchester, the band have released 12 studio albums, with 5 of them going straight to the top of the charts. They've won Brit Awards, Mobos, Ivor Novellos, and sold over 60 million albums in total. Really impressive stuff. Singer-songwriter Mick Hucknell has fronted the band since its inception in 1985, and I caught up with him earlier in the week to talk about his incredible career in music and about the band's latest album, Time, which is released tomorrow. I told Mick how lucky I felt to have had an advance copy of the album.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate it. All I can say to you is that I just did the very best I could. You know, I really pushed myself. I said to my manager and producer that if this is okay, just okay, I don't want to release anything. I don't need to release anything. I could spend the rest of my life just going out on tour every 5 years playing the greatest hits. But it was during lockdown, actually, and like millions of your listeners, I was sat at home, you know, in some cases not even allowed to leave the house. And I just picked up the acoustic guitar and I'm just strumming away watching TV, and slowly the first song I wrote was the last track on the album, actually, Earth in a Lonely Space. Mm-hmm. And I just said to my management and producer, look, if this is just okay, I don't want to release it. It's got to be, the work I do's got to be better than okay. And they liked it. And then my manager then went off and negotiated, started talking to record companies, and they liked it. And eventually we signed a really good deal with Warner Brothers, who were actually my first record label when I was starting out in my career. So in that sense, I feel I've come full circle with them.
And, you know, I get that as well, Mick, because I think the thing is, when it comes to Simply Red, there's just a few things that come in your head. It's really high end. It's always high end in terms of quality. It's these insane vocals, which I know everyone must tell you all the time about your voice, right? And it just is. It's unbelievable. But I think when listening to the album, like just even when I first put it on, and we've had a flavour of this album, and even with the first single, Better With You, it's interesting that you say you wrote this during lockdown, because it seems, I know it was a really terrible time for folk, but for a lot of artists that we've spoke to on the show, it was really quite a creative time, because as you said, what else was there to do? And I think listening to the first single that you released earlier, Better With You, I kind of got the sense of real, you know, just to be thankful for what you have, and looking at your life. We all had to look at our lives in a different way, and it was even just listening to that first single, I felt with the album, I was like, this is going to be good. And it was brilliant.
Thank you. Well, you said it so well. I mean, part of the reason why the album's called Time is that, you know, what the hell just happened? Mm-hmm. These 2 years of weirdness and tragedy, it's almost like time stood still or was some kind of warp. It just is so odd. And I just found myself responding, like you said, just reflecting on what I had, what I'd done. You know, you really get your priorities right. You know, I hear so many stories about people saying that they don't want to go back to a 5-day week. They want to spend more time with their wife and husband and kids, and you know, this notion of the long weekend now of people who they work at home on Fridays and Mondays, and they have a better quality of life, you know, and that's maybe one of the good things that's come out of this tragedy. I didn't know.
I completely get it, and I think everyone's lives have been changed, but I that's the vibe I got from that first single. I want to talk about the new single, the single that's out, Just Like You. We have to talk about this bass line, right? It's insane. It's so, I mean, it's just so funky, you know. It's a great bass, and I love the fact, by the way, there's a part 2 to this single. It's not worth a dime if it's not got a part 2, I think, which is just the instruments on part 2 are just phenomenal. But talk to me about this single. What was the inspiration behind this? For Just Like You?
Well, you'll be interested because part 2 was written first. I was already 7 songs into the album. And I said to myself, you know, I've got such a phenomenal bunch of musicians around me. They're wonderful musicians as well as wonderful people. And I thought, well, this would be great in the second half of the album to give the people a track that really features the band. And I'm standing actually where I wrote the bass line. I was walking into my bedroom and I had my phone in my hand as I'm walking in. I was thinking about how I would devise a track that would feature the band. And I said to myself, well, you know, you'd have to start with a really good bass line. You know, it just has to. And then all of a sudden in my head, I'm just standing there going, doom, 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 doom. And I've actually got it on my phone when I originally did it. Doom, 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 doom. And then the song really came from there. And I built up an arrangement in my head of how I would have a kind of call and response with the instruments. So the trumpet would play, the saxophone would answer, the guitar would play, the organ would answer. And I built up the track, and that was the first. That was it. That was the track. But as I got deeper into the song, as I'm writing, I came up with a couple of additional melodies that made it more of a song, if you get my meaning. And then the first, just like you, the one you play, I just devised 2 or 3 more melodies that then turned it into a song. What I'm particularly excited about, actually, is that when we play, this song is going to stay in our set now, I think, for many years to come. But we're going to be doing part 1 and part 2 together. So it's going to be like a kind of an 8-minute epic where you start with the first thing and then it goes into part 2. You know what I mean? So when we start doing rehearsals in a couple of weeks' time, I'm preparing that to be played at the Shepherd's Bush show, which is our first. It's kind of like a warm-up show before we go out on tour in mainland Europe.
I love the fact that Shepherd's Bush Empire is your warm-up show, by the way. To most people, that's what they aspire to get to hit the dizzy heights. I mean, that's a warm-up show. I love that. Listen, Mick, we're going to listen to that new single right now. It's out of this world. It's Just Like You. Here it is. That was Just Like You at Simply Red. I have to ask, Mick, so throughout this album, I was listening, I have to talk about Slap Bang, right? So Slap Bang for me, I felt was really Americana, actually. It was such a lovely kind of surprise on the album. I mean, that's just my interpretation, right? That's maybe not at all what you were trying to get with it, but it's got this great vibe, as does, I love Hey Mister, as does Butterflies. It was so jazz and that kind of soul in there as well. I mean, there's a real mix on this album. It's almost like, you know, you're going through a journey with it from kind of start to finish. Is there any real favourites that stand out for you?
Well, just to discuss what you mentioned, I really try to be myself on the record. For example, Slap Bang, I think of the old African-American singer Lead Belly, plus also I just imagine myself busking. I remember years ago, before I was famous, I went into Manchester city centre with my acoustic guitar and stood outside Lewis's and just started playing Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley and Eleanor Rigby. And I got moved on by the police after about 10 minutes because there was quite a big crowd. No one knew who I was. And I think I was there for about 10 minutes and I made £11, which in those days, this would be about 1983, 84. That was a lot of money, you know, and the cops moved me along. So when I wrote this song, Slap Bang, I'm sort of thinking about busking, you know, because it's got that kind of flavour to it. Slap bang in the middle of love. Slap bang. Slap bang. The other song you mentioned there, Butterflies, now that was originally written for my friend Cyndi Lauper.
Wow.
and we went through a process. She loved the song, but when I presented it to Sin, it was like it was almost like it could have come from the movie Grease, you know, because I did it in this kind of rock and roll way. She's the one for me, 'cause she makes me believe in love. It was like that, you know, and she loved it. And then we sent over the track and she sang it, but then she calls back and goes, "Oh, I hate my vocal." I said, "Your vocal sounds great. What are you talking about?" She said, "Oh, I don't like my vocal." And so she didn't want to put it out. And then she suggested we do a duet. And I thought, well, it's not really been written as a duet, but okay, we'll go with that. So then I sang another part, and then she comes back again and says she doesn't like her voice. And what can I do about that? You know, she doesn't. So we ended up not releasing it because Sin didn't like the way she sang. I thought she sounded great, but anyway, my producer Andy then suggested, well, look, why don't we do the song? And I said, well, I'd have to change the style of it. I don't want to sing it in that way. So then I thought, well, I sang the song a cappella, and it felt kind of jazzy. It felt a bit more relaxed, you know. And that's so it ended up on the album with my version.
My goodness, I'm like sitting with honestly my jaw to the ground. You're just like telling me things that I'm like, oh my goodness, I did not know that. That is fantastic bit of information. In fact, it was for Cyndi Lauper, and Cyndi didn't want it, which is a shame because I love Cyndi Lauper. But you know,
me too. She's an icon.
But then we get it on this album, so it's, you know, everyone wins at the end of the day. If Cyndi didn't want it, then it's great that it's made it, because I think it really contributes massively. I mean, that's what I mean with this album. It's like you really do go on a journey, and there's so many different sounds on it.
Well, she's the one for me, 'cause she makes me believe in love. Blue skies, what about the air we breathe?
You mentioned you were going on tour. This is a mass. I mean, I'm looking at these dates in front of me just now. You know, London, Croatia, France, Italy, Switzerland. Like I need to tell you, Mick, right? You're actually the one getting out and doing this. This is a huge tour taking us right up until August, where you finish in Switzerland on the 10th. Is this a part of the job that you enjoy doing? You know, getting out on tour and actually, you know, standing there, seeing those fans looking back at you, and, you know, singing your own music back to you?
Well, we're fulfilling our obligations because of the amount of times that COVID cancelled tours. You know, we're effectively playing catch up. We were planning to do these summer dates 2 years ago, so I'm really happy to be going out there. The summer shows, you know, you mentioned Shepherd's Bush. The summer shows are very, very different to indoor theatres. You know, I take an entirely different approach to outdoor shows. The outdoor shows tend to be more up tempo. Because people are standing, you want to keep them moving around. And, you know, in the theatres, we tended to play the slower songs first, because especially people, when they sit in the front rows, their tickets are more expensive, you know. So if you play up tempo stuff, all the audience rush to the front, and then the first 2 rows are really unhappy, because they think, what did I just spend all that money on that expensive ticket for, to have a bunch of people standing in front of me? So that's I always bear that in mind when we're doing sit-down shows, because you want them to get their value, you know. But with a live show outdoors, that doesn't apply. So you can just have a
just go for it.
Time right from the beginning, yeah.
Now, I notice, obviously, I know you're fulfilling dates, but there's no mention of a Scottish date on there. Will we see you back in Scotland, Mick? You know, we would love to have you back up here.
Well, we'll be back with you in 2025, when we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary. That's the next time we intend to tour the UK.
I have to tell you, we're really lucky in this show. We get to interview so many amazing people, but when it comes to Simply Red, even when I've got 4 sisters, even when I put in my family WhatsApp this morning, I was like, oh my goodness, guess what? I'm going to be lucky enough to chat to Mick Hucknell all week.
That's so nice.
My family WhatsApp just became album covers of stars and all these different things, videos and songs, because it was such a huge part of your childhood. So I think the 40th anniversary will be so huge for so many people, because I think, you know, not a lot of people will get to say that they've been such a part of people's lives, you know, and whether it's, and I know you've heard this a lot, where people have had your songs at their weddings or when their babies have been born, but, you know, to be part of that social fabric and to have enriched people's lives in that way. Do you ever get a chance to reflect on that and that, you know, this amazing career that you've had?
Well, you've just described that so beautifully and eloquently, because that is exactly the point. What you just described is the biggest joy of my career. That's what it's all about right there. That's the award. And apart from family, that's the prize. Mm-hmm. You know, when people say things like that they played my song at their wedding or their funeral, I just think, what else do you want, man? This is it. That's the prize. It's beautiful. It really is. And it brings me great, great joy. It really does.
Well, Mick, I have to tell you, it's brought us nothing but joy to have you on the show. I'm sure people will be so excited when that album drops to get their hands on it. But thank you. And, you know, when you do come back up to Scotland, please come in and see us. We'd love to chat to you again on the afternoon show.
Well, I'll try, but I must tell you, I don't generally do much talking when I'm on tour because I want to preserve my voice. But please do pass on my regards to your family on your WhatsApp, would you?
Oh my goodness, they will die. Yes, I will definitely. They'll be listening anyway, but yes, excellent. I will definitely do that. But listen, you have a lovely day and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
An absolute pleasure. Lovely talking to you.
Oh, wasn't he just smashing? What a treat to chat to Simply Red's Mick Hucknell. The band's new album Time is out tomorrow and the single Just Like You is out right now.